Dean, thanks for joining us again on the mother of all talk shows. How optimistic, pessimistic are you about the possibilities of war?
It's a tough one, George, to be honest, because obviously what we're seeing America, yet again, shipping in lots of military aid. The British joining on this week as well, sending in more military aid. This isn't what it needs. It needs discussion, it needs talk. They should be putting together a platform of the leaders from Ukraine, from the separatist republics to sit and talk, not sending more military aid over there.
Well, it was already agreed in the Minsk agreement that the government in Kiev would negotiate with the autonomous areas, formalizing their autonomy. What progress has been made on that?
None. President Zelensky has refused time and time again to speak to the leaders. So the top and bottom of it is, whilst President Zelensky is in power in Ukraine, the war will continue. There'll be no peace.
Do you attribute the current crisis to him being in the presidency, or would any of the Ukrainian nationalist leaders be the same?
Well, this is the problem that I've had before, George, because what happens is when Ukraine get a change of president, it's the same goods, just packaged differently. One oligarch replaces another. What they need is a totally different president, somebody with a different political perspective as well, somebody that takes into account the massive Russian population that exists in Ukraine. This conflict is not black and white. There are so many different angles to it. And one of them is the huge Russian speaking population that live in Ukraine. You've got many people there whose mothers are Ukrainian, fathers are Russian. You've got that as well. So people are half and half, basically. So it's not as clear-cut as Western media would have you believe that Russians are in Ukraine.
Well, of course, according to the British newspapers this morning, Russia has already picked the next government in Kiev, and they actually named several people, none of whom I think are even in Ukraine, who have been handpicked by Moscow to be the government in Kiev. How credible was that?
It's not credible. It's just a nonsense, isn't it? They're just really clutching at straws now. It stinks of desperation.
Now, you know, you say it's complex, and of course it is, but I don't believe that Russia is going to invade Ukraine. Who'd want to take over Ukraine? In the financial press this very day, it's said that Ukraine is about to renege on its debt. It's unable to pay. It's going to go effectively bankrupt. It's a country that the European Union wouldn't touch with a barge pole. So why would Russia want to take over Ukraine? So I don't believe that Russia is going to invade Ukraine, but I do think there's a real possibility of Ukraine invading the hitherto autonomous areas. Is that the way this thing might start?
Yes. I mean, we've seen the report come in today how a sabotage unit entered the Lugansk People's Republic yesterday. They've captured a soldier. So they went across the contact line, captured a soldier who they've, again, taken prisoner. They've done this. They've done one a month for the past 4 months, where they've gone in, captured a serving officer of the Lugansk People's Republic and took them back. So they are trying to kick something off to provoke the conflict, and then they'll just use that as an excuse.
What's the relative military balance? As I understand it, the armed forces of these unrecognized People's republics are workers, miners and factory workers and so on. They'd be up against a professional army in the form of the Ukrainian army.
Of course, very few have have got full military experience. I mean, obviously, in the early days, many of these may have been Ukrainian servicemen, but but for national service, that kind of thing. But the majority of these fighters came from normal professional jobs. They left their wives, families. They are from a lot of them from the mining community, which Donetsk is famous for. They've worked in steel factories. So, yeah, and nobody will deny that they are heavily outnumbered by the Ukrainian army.
So if the Ukrainian army did seek to retake this territory, although God knows what they imagine would happen after that, if the miners and the steel workers stand and fight, there could be a slaughter. Russia could not turn a Nelson's eye to that, could they?
No, they can't. And you're right on the money there. It would be a slaughter. But we have to take into account as well, the people in these Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics, many are Russian passport holders now. So technically they are Russian citizens, and Vladimir Putin is well within his rights to go in and defend those citizens should they come under attack. So I think the last I heard was 350,000 there are Russian passport holders. So if Ukrainian forces do go in, they can expect Russian forces to go in to protect their population. It's as simple as that.
So we could very well have a war without Russia invading Ukraine, at least not before the Ukraine had invaded and started killing Russian citizens in eastern Ukraine.
Exactly. I mean, we saw how this week I don't know if you saw what I posted earlier this week in Lviv, in western Ukraine, where they've been daubing posters over shops that have got signs in Russian, or they speak Russian in the shops. The nationalists have been going there, and it's very reminiscent of 1930s Germany. They've been putting the posters on there telling people to boycott the shops, to not go there. If you do go in the shops, you're being physically abused and verbally abused. Replace them posters with a yellow star. You could be anywhere.
Well, of course, not all of the Ukrainian nationalists are fascists, of course, but no one can deny, certainly not the Israeli embassy in Kiev, which is regularly complaining about them. You could not deny that the anti-Semitic hordes that followed Bandera has its descendant in the Azov battalion, which is now a part of the official Ukrainian army.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I remember back in 2018, when I was in government-controlled Ukraine, I made a point of going down to the Azov battalion headquarters in Mariupol just to have a look round, and people there, just outside the front of the building, there's like a sort of like a coffee shop, and the Azov battalion guys gather there openly with swastika tattoos, with wolf's hook, Odelrune, similar Nazi symbols from those times, and it's just socially accepted there.
Yeah, I mean, giving Hitler salutes is a no-no in almost every part of the world, but it's de rigueur down on the street in Ukraine amongst these kind of people.
Of course it is. I mean, and what surprises me, if you were America or the UK, how can you supply arms to a country like this where Nazi glorification is just the norm? It is the norm. It doesn't shock me. People send me pictures and videos all the time, and I've become kind of like desensitized to it.
Yes, perhaps the British and American people don't know.
Well, that's true. I mean, we try and share as much as we can on social media, but you can only do so much. They need to wake up, really. I'm also puzzled as to why Western media, they're very quick to put Putin this, Putin that on the cover of the paper. Why not look at the glorification of Nazism in Ukraine?
Well, I've never seen that in any mainstream media, though every foreign correspondent for every mainstream media outfit in Britain obviously knows what you are saying to be true. They know it, but they do not report it. Therefore, they are willfully covering up the fact that we are sending weapons and lethal aid to people, a part of whose forces are goose-stepping Sieg-heiling, swastika-wearing Nazis. You couldn't make it up, Dean. Thanks very much for joining us. Might have to have you next week as well if it all kicks off, if the balloon goes up. Thanks for joining us.